Hi, this is JR. This is the language of sacrifice. And before I start to read the blog, I just thought I'd make a couple introductory comments. It's about um, family, and I'm noting or I'm presuming that we recognize an instinctual, innate drive to advance the interests of our descendants. Further, we all are aware of social conditioning, which can distract us from what may actually be um, good for our individual descendants. We can be pulled into activities that can be risky for us, can be confusing, can lead to us making choices that aren't necessarily favorable for our descendants or for even the possibility of reproduction. And so we have all of that as a background. The Number one, the innate urge to do what's good for our descendants, and number two, this immense set of social constructs that potentially interfere with that or even directly interfere with it. So as another introduction, before I get into the content of the blog, if you've read the blog already, great, we will get to that. I was at a funeral recently, and there are references in the blog to pictures, and I'll say more about that when we get to it. But one of my thoughts was that when there are a lot of, if I leave behind a lot of friends and a lot of acquaintances, maybe I'm famous, maybe I lead some movement, start a new school or start a new field of medicine or something like that. All those things can be personally fulfilling and wonderful. There's also the issue of when we're gone, words and paintings and so on, tombstones, they're kind of ceremonially significant. They're not necessarily significant ongoingly, besides a ceremonial congregational purpose. And if there are descendants, if there are a lot of descendants, grandkids and great grandkids and lots of them, that's an important thing to me, that they're just alive and that they're hopefully happy, healthy, and so forth. So all of those things, you can have all of the different things, but if we had to be doing what works for our family, even if it's not especially popular or it's not, restricts our social alternatives or our whatever it may be, the opportunity to be focused on family and contribute to family and produce one or more or lots of descendants, as well as I find that opportunity really attractive, but yet there's been a huge amount of resistance that I've been trained and programmed to have towards that. A lot of things that I'm not that effective. In a lot of ways I'm not that effective, and I've had to really develop intentionally to get better at interacting with people, including kids, but also women. So I think I'm ready to begin the actual reading. Do you have any comment? Yeah, okay. So what I started with is the language of sacrifice, to sanctify, to make sacred. That's what the word sacrifice comes from. I don't know if we have any further comment on that, but I think I don't know a bunch of similar words to mention now, except artificial. I know artificial is related to sacrificial. I don't know. I assume the word official and officer probably has the same root. So there's a big statue of a guy on the top of the City Hall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And that guy in the statue is, or the person who the statue was made of, is William Penn. And he is probably the most famous Quaker in U.S. history, I'm pretty sure, as of so far. So we look at that picture, we think, wow, what if I could have a statue of me? Maybe we think this is one of the things I'm going to speculate around. What if I could have a statue of me hundreds of years after I'm gone? There's a statue of me on the top of a big white City Hall building. Wouldn't that be awesome? Well, who would it matter to? Would it matter to me when I'm gone? I mean, I'm gone, so if it matters to the great-grandkids and other people of William Penn or whoever it may matter to, okay. But how does it matter and who does it matter to? We've seen statues toppled. They'll decay over time. They'll be destroyed. They'll be knocked down and vandalized. It's a statue. So part of the background of me talking about all this is an interest in spirituality and what would otherwise be known as religious icons, or even idolatry, the worshiping of icons, symbols, even words, even phrases like, okay, this language and this set of words, these 4 words in a row in this sequence, these are the most holy words. I love you, Jesus, or whatever, when you put them together, oh, now that's important. So I'm saying that statues, words, Santa Claus is the most important saint in all of Christianity. Well, it's not really necessarily a universal truth that everyone agrees that there's one saint that's the best, or one language that's the best, or one 4-word phrase that's the best, or no, it's a 5-word phrase actually, or whatever. So we just want to kind of have in context a openness. So we don't have a foundation. I'm not presenting a foundation of some kind of presumption along the lines of what I just mentioned. So all those social conditionings, we're aware of them. We can look at the statue on the top of City Hall. We can admire it. We could have contempt for it. We could worship the statue. There's all these range of things. I'm saying, there's a general respect and not necessarily a whole lot of attention, but a general respect. Okay, there's a statue. So, who is more important to you? Your own descendants, or a single individual who died hundreds or even thousands of years ago? Let's ask a slightly different question, similar. If you have children or grandchildren, and they're also in the room with you now, look at them and consider whether you would sacrifice them in exchange for a single painting. Before you answer, keep in mind that the painting displays an imagined scene featuring a famous Hebrew prophet. Would you sacrifice all of your descendants for a painting of a famous prophet? Died a few thousand years ago. You've probably even heard of him or her. So if the painting has a prophet in the painting, is that an important detail? It's some ink and some canvas, or maybe it's some paper with some ink. Maybe it's a drawing of a prophet, or maybe it's a book, the sayings of a prophet. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so would you rather promote the long-term well-being of your descendants even if that involved sacrificing an old painting of the famous prophet. I mean, you could be bidding, you could be at the auction right now, bidding on pictures of paintings of famous prophets, and instead you're at home, like, enjoying your spouse or your kids or, you know, anything else besides giving your full religious attention to having the best painting of the best prophet of the best religious tradition. And, you know, then you have to think about where am I going to put it on my wall? Well, okay, that's one way people could go. Oh, I forgot. There's more. What if the old painting of the famous prophet no longer exists? So it's like, you know, it's really, we got rarity and scarcity now. The painting of the famous prophet no longer exists, but before it was destroyed, there was a photograph taken of the painting, at least a small section of one corner of the painting, and then the photograph is slightly blurry. So what would you sacrifice then? The blurry photo or your descendants? What would you favor? What would you want to get? What would you want to have? At the end of the day, at your funeral, do you want to have descendants or a blurry photo of a small section of a painting of a famous prophet? Okay, now if one of your children makes a low-quality scanned image of the blurry photo of a small section of the famous old painting, then, what about then? Would you be more interested in your child or in that scanned image of the blurry photograph of the famous painting of the famous prophet? Now, even though I expect everyone to favor the welfare of their own descendants, I would like to say a few things about the value of stories, about paintings, about legends, about ancient Hebrew prophets. You already know that your children, but you probably do not know all of the stories about all of the people that have ever been called prophets by any Hebrew. Further, perhaps listening to what I tell you could result in you increasing your clarity about your appreciation for the well-being of your descendants. So now, in the next section, which I'm not going to do just yet, that'll be a separate video. In the next section, I will reveal the identity of the famous Hebrew prophet. It's very exciting. It's very important. If your kids are saying, "Mommy, mommy," just tell them to hold on. Watch the other video first. No, you can watch the other video later. But it is interesting, and there is more, and it gets really tricky and fun and all about some details of U.S. history and British history that you've never heard of probably. And I'm looking ahead. And I expect it will continue to be humorous, but also insightful or useful in terms of the insights that you can have as you listen. All right, go on to video 2 now.